The honourable member from Manitoba. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to thank all my colleagues at the House for recognizing the contributions of the 18th Prime Minister of Canada, the late Right Honourable Brian Mulroney. Firstly, I would like to share my condolences with the family of Brian Mulroney. It's difficult to lose a loved one in any circumstances, but right now his family is grieving their loss in the eye of all Canadians and Quebecers, and even members of the international community.
Mr. Mulroney's legacy is worthy of reflection. He was elected with the largest majority in Canadian history in 1984. His 1985 bilateral summit with President Ronald Reagan proved to be, as the Toronto Star noted, and I quote, foundational for a number of major bilateral agreements on shared security, the environment, and cross-border trade, eventually culminating in the North American Free Trade Agreement, end of quote. I will come back to the Free Trade Agreement momentarily. With respect to the environment, the 1991 Acid Rain Accord was critical to Canada because the pollution that found its way into our rivers, lakes, and forests came mostly from the south of our border, namely the United States. In fact, a 2016 report by the International Joint Commission marking the 25th anniversary, the 25-year anniversary of the Acid Rain Accord found significant declines in the amount of sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxides, and volatile organic compounds, particularly in the U.S. from 1990 levels. Mr. Speaker, Brian Mulroney was the Prime Minister that created the Environmental Assessment Act and the Environmental Protection Act. He did it not because it was popular, but because he truly believed in protecting our environment for his future and for the future of future generations. Mr. Speaker, I would also be remiss if I did not take a moment to express our gratitude for his unwavering efforts against staggering international political odds to end apartheid in South Africa. It is reported that upon his release from prison, Nelson Mandela said, "We regard you as one of our great friends because of the solid support we have received from you and Canada over the years." Upon learning of Mr. Mulroney's passing, South Africa President Cyril Ramaphosa issued a statement on behalf of his nation saying Mulroney was a leader that holds a special place in South Africa's history. It proves that when Canada has the political will and leadership, it can punch above its weight. It can lead the global community to make the right decisions. And on behalf of New Democrats, we thank him and the Right Honourable Joe Clark for their collective efforts on this front. Mr. Mulroney has been called one of the most consequential prime ministers in Canadian history. There is substantive evidence to support that claim. But some of these consequences are controversial, and in the minds of many historians, academics, political experts, and partisans, these consequences impacted negatively on Canada and Quebec both economically and politically. Let me begin with the Free Trade Agreement. The agreement, which came into effect in 1987, codified one of the most important and lucrative trade relationships in the world, that of Canada and the United States, eliminating a range of trade barriers over the course of a 10-year period. But opponents argued that Canadian manufacturers who relied on tariff protection would be decimated by free trade. Critics were concerned that American branch plants would move back to the United States and take advantage of cheaper non-unionized labor. To some extent, this proved to be right. Then there was the GST. Mr. Mulroney replaced the federal sales tax with a 7% goods and services tax. Many arguments were made regarding the pros and cons of this measure as well. No matter who you are, be it Prime Minister, Cabinet Minister, or parliamentarians such as us, there are always decisions that are made which may or may not be popular. You make them because you and your party believe they are the right ones for Canada, and at times for our global partners, and on so many other fronts, including human rights. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Mulroney also took a valiant risk attempting to bring Quebec into the constitutional fold, not once, but twice. Following an interview with the Globe and Mail on June 11, 1990, 2 days after he concluded a difficult round of negotiations with Canada's 10 premiers, Mr. Mulroney said, and I quote, "It's like an election campaign. You've got to work backwards. You've got to pick your dates, and you work backwards from it. I said to my aides that the day I'm going to roll all the dice, it's the only way to handle it." There were serious political consequences to that statement, resulting in the lack of resolution on our constitutional front. In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, it is not an understatement to say that Mr. Mulroney's legacy has been consequential. His contributions have been immense. He was able to work across party lines to get things done. His commitment to Canada, unquestionable. His dedication to advance human rights, admirable and noteworthy. His family must be so proud of his contributions, and I know colleagues in this chamber are truly grateful. As we speak here today, Canadians are filing in to pay their tributes and express their gratitude. I know that many in Quebec and across Canada will attend and watch his state funeral on Saturday as a grateful nation accords him the farewell he actually deserves. To his family, his friends, and his colleagues, I extend my deepest sympathy on behalf of the New Democratic Party. May he rest in peace. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member